UFC Vegas, Fight Club TV. I am Kyle, your host. Welcome to the podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the McGregor Effect and how it has changed the UFC, the path of how people are now trying to move up the rankings using the McGregor Effect, and also the downside of using the McGregor Effect. But before we get into that, do not forget to subscribe, like, head kick the bell icon, get involved with Fight Club TV. We are a gambling channel and UFC channel all in one spot. Get involved. We talk about our best bet plays, which currently we're about 75% plus 15.3 units for the year. So get involved and be around for my next prediction video. So today what we're going to be doing is talking about the McGregor Effect. Now I think it's something that right now a lot of people are more and more talking about because of the incidents that have happened and some of the carbon copies that are coming up now and really getting exposure using the blueprint that Conor McGregor has really laid out using the McGregor Effect. So obviously, let's dial it back. Obviously, in the beginning, where Conor McGregor was a nobody, coming to be a two-time world champion, a lot happened in a very, very, very short time. And really, using his mouth, he got a lot more exposure. But he also was dominating. He was going into these fights, fighting high-level, elite guys within his division, knocking them out, beating them in rounds, finishing them in rounds that he predicted, and continuing to do that, and calling out people and beating them, and just moving up, and what he did to Aldo, and all these, I mean, just so many different things. That's a whole nother conversation, but just the way he moved up, obviously you all know his path, was impressive. I mean, it was something that not only his mouth, but he really was able to back it up using his skill set in the octagon. So he used, it inside and outside of the octagon. And as he did that, people started to say, you know what, maybe this is a way to get a quicker chance to get to the title or move up the rankings and that kind of thing. And there's been some other people that have tried to do that have said, they're gonna talk their way, and then they end up losing or whatever may happen and that kind of stuff. And now it looks like it's more and more where people even like a Colby Covington now. Covington is a guy that, has a nice record. He's definitely a very talented individual, and he's all of a sudden in an interim title fight against Dos Anjos, and something like that where he did beat Damian Maia in very impressive fashion. I mean, that, you got to give him that. But before that, he really hasn't beaten elite level guys. Some good fighters, without a doubt, some good fighters. But elite level, I don't really see it besides Maia, who is obviously heading more towards the end of his career. But, how does a guy like him move from, really an unknown to all of a sudden he's in an interim title fight, and almost had a chance at fighting Woodley and getting the Ultimate Fighter reality show. He was going to be getting that, and he was going to be on there, and maybe against Woodley, and there was a lot of moving parts, and Woodley didn't want it, and all these other things were going on. But he was getting all this exposure, and he didn't really, in my opinion, really prove himself fully. Yes, he's beaten people, and I don't want anyone to think I am totally downgrading that, but it was his mouth that really got him in front of the right people, got the hype going, got the train going, and that is where now we are at the point of Colby Covington is in a title fight. It's pretty unbelievable how quickly that's all happened for him, and he really used the McGregor Effect. He's doing it at a worse level, I gotta say. His trash talking is not as clever, is not as witty as Conor McGregor and a lot of things. He says some funny things, and even on some of his Twitter account and stuff like that, I've seen that he's posted. Some of the stuff is really terrible. It's very scripted. It's not, Conor McGregor's, at the press conference giving these one-liners a snap of a finger. And that's what makes it even more clever, is the fact he's doing this literally off the top of his head, off of a reaction of somebody else, of what they say. So it's very clever the way that Conor did it. But Colby Covington is using the McGregor Effect to get into that position. And again, part of the blueprint, you do have to win. I mean, you got to get some wins. But he was at least able to, he didn't beat elite guys, but he beat guys and got himself pushed up that ranking where now he's getting an opportunity for an interim title fight. Now you got, most recently, you've got Dylan Dennis, who obviously had his debut fight in Bellator, and his connection to Conor McGregor really elevated his brand. I mean, I know he is a champion in a certain discipline, and he's got, and he's definitely a very talented individual, very young. He's going to continue to move up. But what's come out is that he made $100,000 in that last fight. His debut fight on Bellator, he makes $100,000. There are people in the UFC that fight on the main card of a pay-per-view that don't get that. So that shows, I mean, he's connected to Conor, and I really believe, obviously, that Bellator, if they can say Conor McGregor's name on the broadcast at any point, they're going to repeatedly say, and with Danis, they can say it constantly, that, hey, he was in his corner, he trains with them, he's an associate of Conor McGregor, and this and that and other things, and now he's really using the blueprint of what Conor McGregor did, basically, by, now he's tweeting, he's taking over Bellator, he's doing this, he's doing that, and all these other things. But I think it's unprecedented that somebody in their debut that is 0-0 in Bellator gets $100,000 and is able to really generate that kind of money that quickly. It's and he's using McGregor to do that. I don't think McGregor cares. McGregor that's his boy. So they're training together, they're working together, but it's using the talk, it's using the hype, it's using his name, Conor McGregor's name, to get to a point where now he's on a main card of Bellator getting a large amount of money. But is it his skill set, or is it the fact that he is associated with Conor McGregor that got him in that? And I believe that, honestly, if he was not friends with Conor McGregor or trained with him or whatever it may be, what does he make? 20? 20. I don't even know what Bellator guys make. I think even 20 is kind of high for a Bellator guy. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know exactly what they make, but I know what the UFC people make, and the different fighters and different levels of the fighters and where they're getting. I mean, he's above all that. And, does he deserve it? I guess we'll find out as his career continues to go forward. But Danis at that point getting that kind of thing is pretty unbelievable in that amount of money. And we'll see. I mean, he fought a guy that was 2-4. And the guy the guy peppered him with some shots early, and of course, he leaves his leg out, and he ends up getting the submission because the fighter was not very good. But he continues to talk. He continues to keep the talk going, keep people talking, keep media talking, keep everybody talking about who is this guy Danis that got a first-round finish and that kind of thing, so it builds more of his brand as well. But you look at also a guy like Artem Lobov, him as well. He had a 2 fights ago for him? He fought Cub Swanson in a main event, and his record currently is 14-14. So you've got a guy that is connected again to Conor McGregor, that is able to use the McGregor effect in an extent, and leveraging that relationship with Conor to now all of a sudden be in a main event. And at that time, I think he was 14-13, I think is what his record was, or maybe 13-13 at the time. But you're looking at a guy that has a 500 record. He's fighting Cub Swanson, and what? How does a guy like that even get the main event? Well, it's because he's got the McGregor effect. He's got Conor McGregor, who's pulling some strings backstage and able to get his boy in the main event against a guy that he should not even be there. I mean, obviously now Lobov, I guess, has been released from the UFC from the bus incident and all the other stuff. But a guy like him shouldn't even probably be in the UFC, the way that they are so tough on fighters and how they really need to have, winning streaks and keep a certain level of competitiveness and all these other things. And, the guy's literally a punching bag. I mean, he's literally a punching bag with fists. I mean, he's not very good. I mean, he's really not very good within the capacity of the UFC. And I think that that's something that, again, there's a lot to say about that. And now on the other side of it is those are all the good things. All the good things right there is the fact that, it can push you forward. It can do a lot of great things. And, you can get the media exposure and you can get the paycheck. And that is obviously they're prize fighters. They fight for money. That's what they do. That's their job. So all of that, I can respect that. Character building, getting all that going, getting people to know who you are. The more that you talk, the more that you really get your name out there, the more invested, emotionally invested fans are. Fans become more emotionally invested once they realize, wow, this person, does this, this, and this. I can't wait to see them fight. Or I can't wait to see them get their ass kicked. Whatever it may be, they're either for or against, but they're become more emotionally involved. That's why the UFC loves it, and they push it. But now things have slightly changed. And now you look at the fact of what Conor McGregor has done, with the bus incident, throwing the dolly, all these other things that happened that, all for during that event. And, now, at the time, before that, they're talking about Conor McGregor, him versus Khabib in Russia. That's already been botched. They already had said, I think 2 days ago or so, Dana White had said, we're not doing that. If that fight happens, it's too big to be in Russia. It needs to be in Vegas. And that's a very, very smooth way of saying we can't do it in Russia because someone is going to go after Conor McGregor. We can't put Conor McGregor in Russia and think that things are going to be okay. And that's obviously now, you can't do that. I think that was going to be a massive fight. I think it would have been much bigger if this fight ever happens, and I really, really hope it happens. I really, really hope McGregor and Khabib, and for those of you that have been subscribed to this channel for a while, know I've been beating that drum that, these guys need to be fighting as soon as possible and get them in the cage and fight. But I think it would have been a lot bigger if it's in Russia. And I think there's just more mystique to it. There's more interest to it. You got, Conor going into enemy territory and all these other things really brings a lot of hype behind it. It's going to be a huge fight regardless. Obviously, they could be fighting in the street somewhere with a ref, and it's going to be huge. But it would have been interesting there. They had to get rid of that. They have to now have it in Vegas because they need to protect the fighters, which is obviously the right thing as well. Now you've got also Covington. It's the same thing. Covington, they loved it. They loved the fact that he was, downgrading the entire country, talking down all Brazilians, doing all of these things where he was really, really being very vocal and really disgusting some of the things he was saying, but very, very vocal about, his feeling towards the Brazilians, all these things. And then they were quick to get this interim title fight and say, we're putting this fight in Brazil. This was all before Conor McGregor and everything that happened, but we're putting in Brazil, and it's going to be a huge fight because he's going to talk and all these things are going to happen. And now they got rid of that. That fight's going to be, I think, Chicago, I think is where it's going to be, but they said we can't have him there. So it's starting to change the landscape using the Conor McGregor effect, because having the mouthpiece and being able to say so many things and being able to basically just shoot off the cuff and not care, and really with not with not caring about the way that the repercussions are going to be happening. Now things are starting to change where Dana White, the UFC, is saying, these guys are saying certain things or they're acting a certain way. We need to make sure we protect them. So it starts to change it. And now I wonder, is that going to change the way that people are really talking? Is that going to change? Using the McGregor effect, are they going to say, yes, always going to be trash talking in the UFC, always. But to a certain level, has it changed now? With the fact of what Conor did, the certain things that have happened with, Covington and, even with Verdum, him talking to him and, we threw a boomerang at him and all these other things that are going on and the way that all this is happening. And it's starting to unravel a little bit the way, that blueprint of really pushing the envelope and pushing what you can say to someone prior to a fight, really pushing it. And all these guys really, McGregor pushed it to the max, and now Covington is trying to, go to the next step. He's really starting. McGregor was very witty and clever, directing all of his attention at that fighter he was on, and he was very clever with that. But now, Covington's trying to outdo that by really becoming more absurd, with what he's saying. So it's interesting to see how it's all panning out. I want to know from you guys what you guys think. What you guys think really about this. Do you think that this is something that's going to continually go? Do you think that even Danis, at this point, do you think that, where is his career going? Do you think that he's really got this big paycheck because that he is associated with the biggest mixed martial artist in the world? Do you think that that's really what it's from? Do you think it's his ability? Or do you think also that Covington is going to start to tone down some of his his talk. I mean, obviously he's not going to shut up, that's for sure. But what do you guys think? So let me know what you guys think about the McGregor effect on the UFC, the positives, the negatives, and where we are now and the current landscape of the UFC. And if you have not yet done so, subscribe to the channel. And this is Mr. UFC Vegas, Fight Club TV.